At Kingsbridge Academy, a private school built more on legacy than merit, certain things were understood without ever being said. If your last name was stitched into the alumni banner or engraved on a building wing, you were untouchable. If it wasn't, well, you learned how to walk with your head down. Naomi Ellis, a 17-year-old senior, had long since mastered the art of quiet. Sharp-minded, introverted, and fiercely focused, she never invited attention until the day attention came looking for her. It was a Thursday morning, cold but bright. Naomi walked with her usual pace, earbuds in, hoodie up, backpack slung over one shoulder. J. Cole's lyrics pulsed in her ears, pushing her forward. AP Calculus was in 5 minutes, and she didn't have time for drama. But drama didn't need her permission. As she turned the corner near the second-floor science wing, he was waiting. Carter Prescott, Kingsbridge's golden boy, captain of the football team, son of a state senator, and widely believed to be untouchable. 6'3", all jawline and entitlement, with a smile that looked charming on brochures but sinister in person. He stood casually in front of the lockers like the main villain in a teen movie, flanked by his crew but needing no backup. Carter didn't move. He didn't have to. Naomi slowed her steps, not out of fear, but calculation. She already knew what was coming. Well, Carter drawled, his voice just loud enough to make others stop walking. Didn't know the maintenance staff had a dress code now. Naomi didn't even blink. She'd heard worse. Move, she said calmly, brushing past him. Wrong answer. Carter's arm snapped out, blocking her path. You think you belong here? He said, smile gone. This school's not for people like you. And then, without warning, he shoved her. Not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough to humiliate her. Hard enough to draw gasps. Hard enough to get phones raised in every direction like it was a performance. Naomi stared at him, dead in the eye. Her voice dropped to something low, controlled. You really don't want to do this. Carter chuckled. Or what? You gonna cry about it? He shoved her again. That was his last mistake. Carter Prescott didn't realize it, but the moment he shoved Naomi Ellis a second time, he'd crossed a line no one saw coming. Phones were up. Students leaned in. This wasn't just confrontation anymore. This was a show, and everyone had front row seats. Naomi's eyes didn't flicker. Her breath stayed even, but something subtle in her posture shifted. She set her backpack down, slowly, gently, as if she didn't want to break anything inside. One step back, one small turn, and then, in a blink, Carter was airborne. Naomi gripped his wrist, pivoted with practiced precision, and flipped him hard over her hip, sending him crashing to the tile floor with a thud that echoed down the hallway. For a moment, silence. A real, stunned silence. Like the school itself was holding its breath. Carter lay on his back, stunned. His mouth opened slightly, like his brain couldn't quite connect the dots between what had just happened and what was physically possible. 6'3" and built like a linebacker, now staring up at the ceiling like he'd been struck by lightning. Naomi didn't even look at him. She picked up her backpack, slung it back over her shoulder, and casually stepped over his body like he was a stray leaf in her path. I told you, she said quietly, just loud enough for the phones to catch it. Then the noise came. First a gasp, then laughter, then a wave of cheers. Someone clapped. Someone screamed, World Star. Another student shouted, Yo, did you see that? It was chaos. Joyful, frenzied chaos. The crowd that once feared Carter Prescott now laughed at him. And he was the punchline. He rolled onto his side, red-faced and furious. His fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned bone white. But he didn't get up. Not yet. Because he'd just learned something everyone else now understood. Naomi Ellis was not someone you messed with. By the time she walked into AP Calculus, still 5 minutes early, the video had already hit 2 group chats, and 3 Instagram stories were posting clips in real time. Her phone buzzed in her pocket like a drumbeat. At lunch, she walked into the cafeteria expecting the usual isolation. Instead, heads turned. Students who'd never acknowledged her before waved her over. Strangers asked if she'd been trained in martial arts. One kid called her the Queen of Kingsbridge and actually meant it. Naomi didn't say much. She just sat down and ate her sandwich, pretending like she hadn't just upended the school's social hierarchy with a single movement. But Carter, he wasn't smiling. He wasn't laughing. He was watching. Across the room, from a far-off table where he sat alone for the first time in his life, he stared daggers into Naomi's back. And in that glare, there was no embarrassment anymore. Just rage. The next morning at Kingsbridge Academy felt different. The chatter in the halls wasn't about grades or college applications, it was about Naomi Ellis. Her name was in every whisper, every meme, every post. The video had exploded overnight. Carter Prescott gets wrecked by a black girl with ninja reflexes. Naomi Ellis. 1. Entitlement. 0. New Queen of Kingsbridge. For the first time in years, people looked at her, not through her. Some looked with admiration, others with unease. But Carter? He looked with something colder. Naomi could feel it. The way silence followed her in the locker-lined hallways. The way some kids smiled nervously, while others glanced over their shoulders. She tried to ignore it. But then, during fourth period, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. Jim. After school. Come alone. She stared at the screen. No name. No explanation. But she didn't need one. It was Carter. And he wanted a rematch. For 15 p.m. The gymnasium at Kingsbridge stood cavernous and still, its championship banners fluttering gently from high above. Naomi stepped inside, her sneakers making the faintest squeak on the polished floor. The door slammed shut behind her. She wasn't alone. You shouldn't have come here, Ellis, came the voice. Carter stepped out from behind the bleachers, dressed in workout gear, a bruise still faint on his cheek from yesterday's fall, but his pride was far more damaged. Only this time, he didn't come alone. 3 guys emerged behind him, Luca, Bryson, and Tate. His crew. Bigger, louder, dumber. Athletes who followed Carter like shadows. None of them looked like they came to talk. Naomi scanned the room with one glance, her body relaxed but alert. For against one, she said flatly. You must really be scared. Shut up, Carter snapped. He stepped forward, his eyes darker now, no more jokes, no more charm. Just rage. This isn't about fear. It's about respect. No, Naomi said calmly, crossing her arms. It's about your ego. And how bad it hurts when it hits the floor. That hit a nerve. Carter clenched his jaw. After today, he growled, you'll never forget your place. Her stomach tightened. Those words, your place, weren't new. She'd heard them whispered by kids in class, seen them in the eyes of teachers who assumed too little of her, felt them in every side glance and unspoken rule at Kingsbridge. And now here it was again. Naomi didn't flinch. Carter swung first. Sloppy. Fast. Wild. She ducked. Effortlessly. Then Luca lunged. She twisted sideways, planted her foot, and swept his legs out from under him. He slammed into the hardwood with a grunt. Bryson came from the right, trying to grab her from behind. Bad move. She drove her elbow straight into his ribs. He doubled over, wheezing. Tate hesitated. She didn't. A quick spin and a clean kick to his chest sent him tumbling backward into the bleachers. 3 down. Carter now stood alone, breathing heavily, fist clenched, fury burning in his eyes. This is for yesterday, he hissed, and rushed her. Naomi moved like water. She dodged left, blocked right. Then bam. A clean, powerful kick to his midsection. He stumbled back, gasping, stunned. She stepped in, gripped his collar, and slammed him down flat onto the gym floor with a controlled force that left no doubt. He didn't get up. She crouched beside him, voice low and cold. You don't own me. And you don't own this school. He winced, his pride cracked beyond repair. His friends groaned on the floor around him, all of them laid out in a circle of shame. Naomi stood, adjusted her backpack strap, and walked toward the door, never once looking back. Because this fight wasn't about revenge. It was about being seen, heard, respected. And today, Kingsbridge had seen all of it. The next morning, Kingsbridge Academy didn't feel like Kingsbridge. The marble floors still gleamed. The blazers still fit just right. But something in the air had changed. There was a quiet buzz through the halls, not of gossip, but of reckoning. Naomi Ellis walked through the front doors like she did every day, quiet, collected, hoodie up, backpack on. But this time, the whispers weren't behind her back. They were in front of her. Some students moved aside instinctively when she passed, like parting for royalty. Others gave her nervous nods, the kind reserved for someone who'd proven they were no longer to be underestimated. A few looked away in embarrassment, people who once laughed along with Carter or ignored the first shove in the hallway. Now, no one was laughing. Not at her. Not anymore. By lunch, the footage from the gym had leaked. 4-on-1, and she won. The new video picked up where the old one left off. 2 angles. Clear audio. Clear dominance. The title trending across private student stories. Don't mess with Naomi. Naomi sat at her usual table, alone at first. She unwrapped her sandwich like it was just another Tuesday. But one by one, people began approaching. First, a girl from her literature class, asking if she could sit with her. Then a junior she'd barely spoken to, complimenting her form like she was a trained martial artist. Another student slid a Red Bull across the table without a word, as if making an offering. It was surreal. These were the same kids who, just last week, pretended she didn't exist, who only saw her skin, or her silence, or what they assumed about where she came from. Now they saw something else. Power. Not because she threw punches, but because she stood her ground. As Naomi left the cafeteria, she passed Carter's usual table. He wasn't there. Rumor had it he skipped school. Other rumors said his dad was furious, that he might transfer. But Naomi didn't care. Not because she wanted revenge, but because he no longer mattered. Not in the way he used to. Back in class, something strange happened. When Naomi raised her hand in history, people listened. When she walked into chemistry, the whispering stopped. When she walked past the faculty lounge, a teacher who never remembered her name suddenly greeted her like they'd known each other for years. It wasn't popularity. It wasn't fear. It was respect. Earned, not inherited. And in a school like Kingsbridge, that was rarer than anything. That evening, Naomi lay on her bed, phone buzzing with notifications. Some were compliments. Some were apologies. Some were just wide-eyed emojis from kids who'd never said a word to her before. She scrolled through them all, not with pride, but with quiet reflection. Because deep down, she knew. She didn't win that fight just for herself. She won it for every girl who walked down a hallway and felt invisible. For every kid who got pushed but stayed silent. For every student who was told they didn't belong because of where they came from, what they looked like, or how they didn't fit. The following week, the halls of Kingsbridge Academy still echoed with the sound of polished shoes and whispered ambition. But underneath it all, something had shifted. Not because of a school policy. Not because of a new principal's speech. Because one girl refused to stay small. Naomi Ellis hadn't set out to become a symbol. She didn't want a spotlight, didn't ask to trend, and never planned to flip a boy twice her size in front of the whole school. But when she stood up to Carter Prescott, with her body, her voice, and her silence, something snapped in the system. And something stronger took its place. Not fear. Awareness. Students began noticing who got talked over in class. Teachers paused before mispronouncing a name they never bothered to learn before. People looked twice before making the kind of joke that had always been safe, because Naomi's presence reminded them. Safe for who? As for Naomi, she didn't chase glory. She still wore hoodies. Still walked alone most mornings. Still answered questions in class with the same quiet thoughtfulness. But now, when she spoke, people listened. Because they knew that behind her calm voice was someone who had already fought to be seen. Someone who didn't crumble when tested. Someone who reminded the school that not all power comes from privilege. Sometimes, it comes from knowing who you are and refusing to shrink when someone tries to erase it.